days were gone, right? You will never have this type of happy serendipity opportunity anymore. You need a process. You need a way to really force you to come up with creative, innovative solutions. So this is where I'm coming from, right? So I think alluding to this, because we're actually living in a very exciting time, right? We call it the fourth industrial revolution, right? The word revolution is there, and coupled with COVID-19, it accelerates the whole thing again, right? For the past 30 years, there's actually a lot of convergence, a lot of development in the technology side, right? Be it nanotech, be it medical tech, you name it, everyone started to work on that. Artificial intelligence that we should be known today, they are not new. In the 80s, they already have this AI. But the thing is like AI actually was in its infancy. We don't have enough data set. And you know that all this combination effect, right, of the technology actually compounded the whole thing in a sense that AI, right, thrive on big data. That big data will actually be supported by Internet of Things, because those are the things that collect the data. So it's actually combinatorial effect. So along the lines also, we know that Moore's law still holds until today, right? Intel actually has that, been living true to this Moore's law, right? I still remember in 1986, the Cray 2 computer, the supercomputer, was actually the best computer in the world, the most powerful one. Today, if you're wearing an iWatch, right, the little iWatch, actually have the power of 2 super Cray computers during then. So you can imagine things has improved leaps and bounds. But the key here is actually, first, in order to innovate using the technology, you need to be abreast, staying abreast if that what is the latest and greatest. If there are blockchain, if the Internet of Things, these are the things that you need to learn, right? So here comes the thing. As a professional, you learn something new. Those are not innovation yet. Those are capacity building. You build yourself. You have a lot of absorptive capability. You learn things fast, right? You go through the learning curve, and then starting to understand the nitty-gritty of it. So once you know that, right, the next thing is actually you need to put this thing together to create something new. You learn about data, big data. You learn about Internet of Things. You learn about AI. So those are the prerequisites. The moment you master that particular skill, then you have to enhance it by creating something new. Creating something new out of an idea that is new to you or your organization is what I would define as innovation, right? So this is where it leads another step. So a lot of times, innovation is not easy life, right? Actually, it's an experiential learning process. Falling, just like riding a bicycle, falling is part and parcel of it. You need to get the hang of it. There's no way you can ride a bicycle by actually reading the books or maybe watching the YouTube videos and so on. You need to ride the bicycle yourself, right? So with this, I think it must have a purpose, because a lot of things that we do today, if we don't have a purpose, why are we doing what we are doing? I think the drive may not be there, because I can share with you, the journey of innovation is not an easy journey. It's going to be some peaks and troughs, right? Some success and some failures, and we do see failures as well. And you need to learn how to cope with it and pick up yourself and continue to move forward. So for myself, right, I know that this is back in 2015. The United Nations has these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And I'm actually a strong supporter for goal number 3, which is health and well-being, and as well as innovation, which is number 9. Each one of you can actually have something like this is higher calling, right, which you are passionate of, because this will become your true north and then continue to move you, especially during difficult time, that this is actually where it makes sense, where it makes a difference. You want to make a difference in this world, right? So this is where, this is key for professional and also more and more of organization today to move into a sustainable development, right? So for me, personally, every time I go and meet up with people, especially professionals, because sometimes there are two sides to a coin, right? You can have people who are truly embracing the emerging technology, but these are the minority group, right? The first movers, first adopters. But a lot of this naysayer in the middle. So this is where, at times, people are so afraid of, like, maybe AI is going to rule the world and all those. Primarily because you need to understand it. But if you don't understand something, they start to fear it, right? And maybe we have been influenced too much by Hollywood movies as well, like the Terminator and all those. But frankly speaking, right, I can speak it for myself. In my lifetime, I predict I don't have to go to the level of Terminator, that kind of AI machines, right? we will actually live in the Iron Man era, whereby we'll be supported by those gadgets, the tools that is helping us to do things better, right? So that's where I use that word Iron Man versus the Terminator type of approach. So if there are emerging technology like AI, Internet of Things, the 5G and all those, well, we can embrace it, wholeheartedly so that we can spend more time living and help others. If we need to be able to think of our job, because a lot of time, if you're a professional, you tend to have like, depending on which side of the coin you are, you may have a fear of losing a job, right? And during this COVID-19 pandemic, I do pity and empathize with many who have lost their job as well. So I think the key here is actually we can actually go back to a discussion later on why you and how you can actually take steps to minimize the impact on you. So you leverage on maybe AI or robotics process automation or RPA in short on your tasks, right? You don't have to be a job elimination, the task, which means that it helps you do things better. An example, we know that AI has been used very widely in diagnosing X-ray images, right? In many hospitals, especially in China, right? So what they do is actually, you pit against AI machines doing the X-ray interpretation versus a group of doctors, 15 of them. And to be honest with you, the machine is much faster. The AI machine is much faster in diagnosing, right? And then more accurate, right? So they can do half the time of a human, then more than 20% more accurate than the human doctors. So in this case, you can actually use this AI engine to help you to diagnose faster, because at the end of the day, no one is going to listen to a black box like AI machine to tell you that what diagnosis results you are in, right? Whether you have cancer or you don't have cancer, you always fall back to a medical doctors. That's what I meant by a task. So you imagine you have a wizard that help you, and then you as a doctor, they are now more productive to do things, right? So another thing that we need to understand, I think Femi mentioned about the agility, right? No, the adaptability, because today, if there's going to look for a horizon of 5 years, 10 years, those are long-term planning, you can forget it because those things will never happen anymore. Today, the key here is actually how do you adapt and be agile and continuous to correct. Just like when you're driving a car around the bend, right? When you drive a car around the bend, you actually correct the steering, in a very microseconds level. You don't wait for every 1 second to correct the steering wheel because your car will be, going off the cliff. So those are the things that you must have a growth mindset, embracing the culture of optimism. And this is where it enhances speed, efficiency, and also agility for you to react to the actual environment. And most importantly, we know that technology is there, but technology will never replace human. I mean, that is where I'm actually a supporter of that, because we promote human as expert, right? Rather than, just like the Terminator versus Iron Man. Iron Man is actually the person, the human actually calling the shots, but I think the machines is actually helping to execute that, right? With this, I think, let me go through this very briefly in the sense that a lot of times we know that at the end of the day, it's business, right? Companies need to have the profit and loss, right? They are responsible for that. Business leaders knows their business very well. They know the competitions, they know everything. Only thing is that sometimes business owners or business leader, they actually living at the buzzword level. They know what is AI, they know what is innovation, but it means different things to different people, right? So this is where, how can business understand and leverage and harness the technology? Because rather than saying that, hey, let's use blockchain, but you need to understand that. But business leaders, even though they understand the business very well, but the understanding of technology side needs a little bit of work. On the other end of the spectrum, you have technology leaders who knows everything about this technology. They know about blockchain, they know about AI, IoT, and all those. And they also have Planck knowledge, essentially, Planck versus the shopper knowledge. But the thing is, like, all these technology leaders, they also have the dilemma, because the knowledge half-life, every 2 years, whatever they learn is going to be half, right? So they have to constantly improving themselves. But the key here is actually whoever can combine the gaps, this actually, there's a gap to be addressed. Extremely useful in thinking how businesses can be enabled by technology, because you don't want the technology leader to push the agenda. The moment they push the agenda, they will push the AI, they'll push the big data. But if you ask the question, on the business sense, then, it's totally, litmus test will be like this, right? For example, if someone were to ask you about, or share with you how great the big data visualization is and so on and so forth, then if you are the business leader, then you ask the question, right? How do I improve my productivity from 80% to 95%? That's a business question. And then suddenly you know that the whole analysis of the big data analytics fell flat, right? Because those are the gap. But the key here is actually it's a combinatorial effect that we are looking at. And this is where it becomes very challenging because now that not only you need to know your stuff, you need to know other areas as well. So a lot of time we hear this T-shaped profile people, right? Inch wide, mouse deep, and mouse wide, inch deep, which means that you must have certain anchor. If you're very good in maybe cyber security, so that is your right, the mouse deep inch wide. But the thing is that knowing cybersecurity alone is not going to help you, right? Because you need to know how it's applied. So you need to cut across the T, the top of the T. So this is where you need to have a broad spectrum of knowledge, even though you may not be the expert of it. But the key here is actually the fastest way of doing that is definitely to collaborate with people who has different that, right? So that's where we always hear this word collaborative approach, right? So this is where the new leadership is no longer leadership by title, whether it's CIO, CTO. No, it's just like KOL, right? The key opinion leaders, right? Those guys will becomes the leader. And if you look at the skills, there's a lot of tools that is currently available, and you can actually enhance it because today with the like we are where we are now, right? I'm actually 10,000 miles away from you, but the world is getting smaller so that we can actually start to learn from each other. And there's actually a combinatorial effect. But one of the things that you really need to know is your insights. Whichever domain you want to be in, you want to create a solution for agriculture, you need to know that particular market verticals inside out. Those are the insights. Without the insights, the application of technology doesn't mean anything, right? So with this, I think I hope that because we are living in a very exciting time, the whole world has been reset by COVID-19, right? Now we actually have a level playing field. Everyone have the access to the same technology, same level of thinking. Only thing that whoever is able to put that into good use and able to create new value, which is innovation, is going to be the new leader going forward. So with this, my key takeaway message is for you to embrace change, innovate, but don't follow whatever people is doing, because innovation is very much, you need to internalize to your own context. Whatever that works in Southeast Asia may not work in Africa and vice versa. The same goes to like you hear the word reverse innovation, right? Reverse innovation is like a lot of healthcare innovation will never be able to take off in the developed countries like US, Europe, and so on, because the regulation is so strict and there's no way you can actually have this innovative solution being implemented. But in the in the countries like Africa or some more forgiving country that don't have such a strict and tight regulation in healthcare, that's where they start to have a new way of experimenting with things. And eventually, when it matures, it goes back to the developed countries, right, as an innovation. So have a purpose, because that is where the key is, your true north guiding you. Must have a growth mindset. If you want to read more, I think Carol Dweck, the growth mindset, that book itself is actually quite a good read. Must always dawn on the growth mindset. And more importantly, the last one, which is that you need to take action. Try to be the disruptor rather than the group that's been disrupted. So with this, I think a journey of 1,000 miles always start with the first step. What is yours today? My key takeaway message is you need to act now, if not yesterday. And with this, I think thank you so much. I think we'll pass on to the next panelist so that then we can actually go through this whole understanding of where this particular session is all about. Thank you. Over to you, Femi.
Yeah, thank you very much, Doctor. We really appreciate that thought. While Isaiah is setting up, there's one quick question I have here. What do you mean by KOLs?
Key opinion leaders.
Okay.
Today, you notice, yes, YouTuber, right? YouTuber, they are all key opinion leaders.
Mm.
As an example. So they can speak very eloquently and very passionately about their cause. That's why you need to have a higher purpose. Your purpose is actually to fight for environmental, or you try to protect certain cause that you like. And these people actually have the followers of millions, right? And you can imagine the impact that this person is created. The level playing field is there for you. You have YouTube access, everyone. But why are we sitting here and not doing that, right? So, the thing goes back to you. And once it becomes a key opinion leader, your leadership doesn't come because of the title, because you're the CTO, you're the CEO, whatsoever. You can make a difference. But the thing is that your cause must be known to people. Your cause must be, value adding to people. Then the value proposition is there, and that's very innovative. If you look closely, right, I'm sure that a member of the audience will know that many YouTubers out there, they actually speak with their own cause, they charted and champion the cause, and this is where KOL is.
Good, thank you very much. We're getting question. We'll tell our participants that please, we will take this question after the next presentation, please. We're collating the questions. We will take them after the presentation from Mr. Isaiah. Yes, Isaiah?
Thank you, Femi. Can I go for it?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
First to you, sir, thank you for the invitation. I think it's remarkable what you're doing, especially in this era we're living in. We need to have more of these and support each other as much as possible to grow. Yeah. I also just want to thank you and Dr. Khoh as well for painting that macro picture. I'm going to just tone it down a little bit in terms of business and individual context. Really to challenge some of our participants to say, if we align to the theme of this conference, what are some of the things we need to rethink and retool? What my worry is, I think we have many people that are still sleeping through this revolution happening. I still come across many people that say, I'm waiting for post-COVID. And there's no such. We have to embrace this new normal. And it's actually worrying and sad for those people that are waiting. And I hope that this conference here and the input from all the presenters will serve as a wake-up call to many. The picture that you see in front of us, my colleagues know very well, but I really like this picture. And it speaks about many things, but the context of today, I want to speak about blue ocean strategy or blue ocean shift as a tool today, because I think many of our business leaders, as well as on the individual level, don't use this tool enough. What you see on the left is a bowl of fish, and that's the so-called red ocean. In other words, it's businesses competing for the same market, and therefore there's blood in the ocean. Limited margins, limited performance. What we need to do, especially now in the age of disruption, is to find ourselves and jump over to the right into a blue ocean where there's limited competition. Uber is often used as an example, but we won't delve into that today. Of course, Femi, in 5 to 10 minutes, it's very difficult to share many things. So
yes,
really just ring fence the very key issues that I think would be useful for some of our participants.
Good.
In dealing with it, I just want to remind, and I know many people as participants are far beyond this, but I still come across many people that struggle with limiting beliefs in business and in organizations. And the example that you see here is a very old example of a piranha fish placed in a fish tank. After a few days, they separated the tank in half with a glass piece. The piranha realized that it couldn't access the food on the other side. 3 days later, they removed the separation, but the fish still died because it believed that it cannot access the food. Those limiting beliefs we find in organizations as well, where we hit barriers. People tell us we have bad ideas, all of these things, and we don't implement them, and we die of hunger. So that's something that we need to work against. But now, specifically then, in the business context, when we deal with blue ocean, I really want to say to everyone here, yes, we're in a competitive landscape, we're in a competitive market, and there's been disruption. But instead of fighting for a piece of the same cake, let's think differently. Let's retool ourselves. Let's increase the size of the cake. And with this, I'm saying, isn't there a platform opportunity to create without disruption? It's perhaps an alternative path to growth. This is where we make the competition irrelevant. And to put this into context, I'll just share one brief example. I'm not going to delve into that, but that's the book Blue Ocean Strategy. Blue Ocean Shift is also out. I would encourage anyone that's interested to go and find it. The difference between a red ocean and a blue ocean, what I shared with you, if you look at the first bullet, and that's where I'll end on this slide, is to say, quite often we accept that this industry ecosystem, it is what it is. That's what we often say. With blue ocean thinking, we're saying this industries that's been in existence for many years, we can redesign them. And therefore, I encourage all of us to apply some of these tools to redefine the industries we operate in. Before I share an example, I need to say this. This is the context. Quite often, if your business is established, you have an existing customer base, the white area on the slide, and that represents your current market. What Blue Ocean thinking teaches us, and this is for me quite important, is that just outside that market, there are customers that are soon to be customers. Beyond that, it's customers that refuse to buy your product. And then beyond that, that's an unexplored market, the so-called blue ocean combined. What is it that in your business you need to reconstruct so that you actually go through all those tiers of possible customers and grow rapidly? Let me try and explain this very briefly with one example before I deal with some thoughts on a career level. This is a very popular blue ocean model that companies use to redefine themselves. And it speaks about what do you have to raise, do better, what do you have to reduce, what do you have to create, what new things you need to introduce, and what do you need to eliminate. The combination of those things that you change in your business results often in a new offering.
What let the number change?
I'm not sure, am I getting, let me continue. So this, there are various very exciting case studies, but this is a very easy one to understand. It's a few years old. It's a company in the US for you fitness. And at the time, they applied this model and blue ocean methodologies to their business. What they were experiencing was the following. They said they were in a red ocean. In their area, over 35,000 health clubs and the likes, and various 68 studios similar to this. The problem was they only had around 8 leads per month, new people wanting to join the studios. So they went out and said, let's apply these principles. And in a nutshell, what they did, they improved the experience, meaning in a typical gym, you would have a fitness instructor that's there, but that doesn't really support you. They paid fitness instructors a lot of money to give you personal attention when you come into their facility. Secondly, they reduced time. They said many people want to exercise, but they don't have an hour. So they developed technology where people can have the same level of exercise in 20 minutes, equivalent to an hour's exercise. And people like that. Whilst doing that, they got the support from fitness instructors. Then, and of course, in each of these areas, there's more than what I'm describing that they did. But on a high level, these are the items that they pursued. On the bottom right-hand corner, they said, what can we create? A new thing for this industry. And they offered a guarantee to their clients to say, if you come to our gym and your goal is to lose weight, subject to certain conditions, if you don't lose the weight, we'll pay back your money. People like that. The last one was to say, most gym has contracts. People don't like contracts, so they eliminated all contracts. They say, come to this gym and you can have a month-to-month deal. This is what happened. Within the first month, they had hundreds of new leads, and per studio, over 200. their revenue growth went from 158 and expected 350. And the last time I looked at this case study, they were expanding across the nation in the US. Here's the thing. In your business, what is it that you can reconstruct that perhaps you have customers, soon to be customers, resisting customers, unexplored customers, that if you just change a few things, you'll open up new markets. I strongly encourage you to revisit this model. I need to say the following as well, and then perhaps wearing now my government hat in the city of Tshwane, as the head of innovation, the city has just under 3 million people. And what we've done, we actually went to one of many examples to our 3 major universities. Together, they consist of close to 400,000 students. We gave them 4 challenges. And we said, these are some of the major problems in the city in terms of service delivery. Get your students to come up with innovative solutions for that. The reason we did that was to seek fresh innovation, firstly, but secondly, we want our students in the citizens of the city of Tshwane to actually come up with the solutions for their city. And the next step now, we've shortlisted the solutions. And very interestingly, we took all these students through Blue Ocean training, because we're saying, when you come up with a solution, it's not about the technology. You need to be able to start your business and scale your business. As the city, we're opening our doors where they can actually implement those solutions. I will leave it there from a business context, but really encourage anyone to whom that example made sense to investigate Blue Ocean thinking. It should assist a great deal. Then Femi, just a few thoughts on an individual and personal career context of what we could do. I thought, let me share this picture and just say the following. I think one's career or your journey is like a ladder. How you climb the ladder or how you become more valuable. And I have to just be clear, when I say becoming more valuable, I'm referring to the marketplace, because one can be valuable in many different areas. And I've listened to a mentor, and he's also shared some thoughts around this. So how does one become more valuable? If you look at where you are and you earn whatever you earn per hour, is it possible to go from $5 or $50 per hour to $5,000? What is to change? Because there are people that earn 5,000, 50,000, and even much more than that per hour. What's the difference then between them and us, if you were to ask those questions? My challenge is, quite often we do things in our careers individually, but it doesn't take us further up the ladder. It takes us sideways, or it takes us level. You do something very interesting. You have, I don't know, for example, a degree in public admin, and you do another degree in the same area. Will that really make you valuable, or will what that just take you sideways? Of course, if you're an academic and if you're in that field, then it's fine. But I'm really referring to the marketplace here. An interesting thought around my PhD, Femi, and it's being delayed. I actually went through a similar exercise, and this is a personal view where I am. I don't see myself an academic. I have a foot in there, but I'm not an academic. I see myself as a marketplace leader. So I had to look at the time I have available and the things that I needed to do to make myself valuable. And completing the PhD didn't rank in the top 3. So therefore, it was delayed, but I'm still pushing to complete it. So I'm just encouraging everyone to really critically think about what is it that you need to pursue to make yourself valuable. And let me just leave you with some parting thoughts here around becoming more valuable in the marketplace. Here's the thing. I strongly believe that we are all called to create. As we look around us, we know in the beginning there was creation, but things are still being created on a daily basis. It doesn't mean if we don't see it, it's not there. There's a belief that's referred to as tikkun ulam. That belief speaks about in the beginning when the earth was created, many elements were left incomplete. And the reason for that is for us to participate in the completion of many of those items. Um, Dr. Miles Monroe speaks about this eloquently, saying that we didn't get furniture, but we received trees. We didn't get cars, but there was iron ores. So what is it that's deep down within you that you feel you are called to create? And quite often within that domain, one's purpose also lies in there, and perhaps there's new solutions that has to be created by some of us on this platform here today. Miles Monroe also says that our poverty crisis, not always, is sometimes a lack of creativity crisis. That's my first thought. The second one speaks about value innovation. When we come up with new solutions and new technologies, it has to be linked to value innovation, because you can have the most fascinating app or technology or tool, and it could solve a problem, but you haven't thought about it systemically, and it doesn't go a long way in terms of solving the problem. On a personal level, I can perhaps refer to a 3D print studio, additive manufacturing studio that we had a couple of years ago. We launched this, it was around 2014 in South Africa. Everyone was excited. We created a LinkedIn group. Within 2.5 months, we had close to 5,000 followers. People came to the studio and they just wanted to see these 3D printers in action. The problem was no one bought. So the company couldn't sustain itself. And to me, that was a good example of excellent technology. There was a hype, but the model wasn't completed from a value innovation point of view. Perhaps as I end off, Femi, I know we're against time. Let me deal with my last two. A risk-taking mindset. Now, these are not new things. We know this, but in this current era, these are some of the things we really need to do and pursue effectively. I remember this is now 2008 as head of innovation for Eskom. It was interesting. Eskom is our electricity utility in South Africa. At the time, 35,000 employees. And I was appointed as head of innovation. I was excited, came up with all kinds of frameworks and solutions and presented to management. And soon, very soon, I learned that no one cares about my nice frameworks and theories that I come up with. They wanted to know, what will your solutions result in? What's the impact of this innovation thing that you're bringing to us? But then I realized in order for me to be successful in the job is I have to take a risk. Significant risk, pushing barriers, pushing boundaries, and there was so much that we did. But taking a risk in terms of improving the organization. So I went home to my wife and I told her the story and I said to her, I'm going to do this in Eskom, but I'm going to upset people and push boundaries. There's a risk that the organization might fire me. So if I come home one day and I tell you I'm without a job, you'll understand. She gave me a blessing. I went back and worked in that job for 2.5 years. Here's the thing. After 2.5 years, when I left the organization, my then boss said this to me, Isaiah, I beg you to stay. Now, when I reflected on that entire incident, I realized then I was dealing with limiting beliefs, pushing boundaries. And as long as you do the right thing, yes, you'll step on toes, but you have to do that in the innovation space if you want to have impact and make a difference. That to me was a wake-up call. And as I end up, Femi, we all know that it's quite important that we reinvent ourselves. You spoke about it earlier. I just pulled this out. This was my conferences last year, all the tags. Here we are today. We are online. It's a different world. So if you're still waiting for a new normal and for someone to invite you to a conference where it's physical, you'll wait. Reinventing yourself, this new normal, there's so much that one can be said, but I'll end off just with another example of a family member. My daughter specifically, she started in a position in Dubai in January this year. All most of her life, she's been involved in gymnastics, and she's a gymnastics coach, doing quite well in that space. So she was headhunted, went to Dubai, 4th of January. Literally 2.5 months later, COVID strike, and then the gym was closed. She didn't know what to do. And then I said to her, come home, but she's strong-willed and decided to stay, which I really valued from her. Long story short, the first couple of weeks was very challenging. She had no income. And she started reinventing herself to say, I don't have access to kids that I can train. So let me actually now start with online personal training, which she did. Around June, July, that business grew so much that she earned more than she earned when she joined the company in the beginning. She saw herself now as an entrepreneur. July, August, still excellent. In September, the company, the doors reopened. She was one of very few that remained in the country. They offered her a position, which she started in September, but she said to me, Dad, end of September, I'm resigning again because this job pays me 50% less than what I can make outside. So end of September, she's resigning and she's now into a different career. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Oh, thank you very much. Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think I can't be clapping here. Thank you, our panelists, for those great talks. I think it's only three of us talking. It's better we give the participants to also contribute. I will just go through the chat room and take some of their thoughts and questions, and I will direct it to the members of the panel. The first I have here is from Honore de Blessing. Please, can we get the slide show for this session? We'll make that available. After today, we'll send a link to you where you can download it from the site. We are recording it from Michael Shodunke. We're recording the session. This will also find a way to kind of edit and make available. Now to the big question from the Mr. Michael Shodunke. Said, why does innovation fail? Why does innovation fail? Can I start with Dr. Khoh, please? Why does innovation fail on global level, and can we localize the reason why innovation fails? You're muted.
No, I think someone is talking.
Okay. We can hear you now.
Can you, if you're not talking, can you mute yourself, please? All right. So, okay, I think, well, innovation, right? Failure has always been there. Okay. Isaiah, I think there's one. Maybe there's,
yes, you can go ahead. Doctor, you can go ahead. I've muted him.
All right, cool. So I think what we need to realize this, right? Innovation has been failing all the time, right? Frankly speaking. The only thing is we always see the one that is successful. Out from the 100 of them, maybe 3 successful, 97 of them didn't make it. You don't see them, right? So those are one of the things that we need to understand. But another thing is actually innovation is all about value proposition. Right?
Please go ahead. Go ahead. We'll manage that from our hand here.
Right. So I think what we can do is actually, if we look at this, right, and a lot of times the first thing is actually about value proposition. You don't have to create something new as well. You don't have to have a fancy technology, but value proposition must always be there. What I meant by value proposition, right? Sometimes you look at new emerging economies. Their innovation is what? Lower cost, cheaper price. So the value proposition.
Maar die start moet altijd uitrijden. En dan mensen ze graag afkomen. Wat is er iets als
Femi, just as you manage that, I see that I have two connections. The one that's busy now has got my name, but it's not me.
Ah, okay. I think that's the one that is noisy. That is not you. The one that has no video. Anyway, I think what I'm going to get at is actually like this, right? Because innovation is a very highly complex game. You must always have this value proposition. Without value proposition, you're not there. So sometimes you look at the new emerging economies who want to innovate. They offer the equivalent things at a lower cost. The value proposition is on cost, the pricing. So those are the value proposition. Even within a red ocean area, you still have value proposition. You just need to know what is your value proposition and continue from there. And most of the time, we see a lot of technopreneurial fail because very simple. A lot of them come up with the ideas. Hey, I have these great ideas. But you see, one trick pony doesn't work. You must have a product roadmap. So I think, imagine like Uber, right? Uber is a disruptor. Everyone knows that. But the disruptor got disrupted in Malaysia, for example. They cannot survive because they have the idea. They came in, then it gives everyone else the idea. So if you are the first mover advantage, right? You are the disruptor. You need to continue to move further from there, right? So this is where, sometimes you look at those guys who survive in the ride-hailing apps type of environment, they're already moving themselves into the payment gateways, to the super apps and all those. You need to have a stream of value proposition. The key here is actually value proposition. I know there's a question on this real estate as well. You need to look into what is your value proposition, because if you don't know your value proposition, you don't know where your target market is, there is nothing to be transacted. So that's why there's a difference between invention versus innovation. Invention is you invented, I can give you a code, right? Mousetrap. I'm sure that many of you see the mousetrap before. So you have more than 40,000 patents related to mousetrap. Every year you have to file patent, you have to maintain the IP. So it makes the inventor proud. I'm a patent holder of a mousetrap. But the thing is that how many mousetrap can you buy in the market? Those are innovation. The rest are invention. So even if companies invested so much until the end, there is no innovation at the end, right? So it's a lot about value proposition. So I think that's where I would like to mention to those guys who actually, for those audience who actually pose the questions, right? Because innovation has been failing all the time, except that we never read about those guys who failed. We only read about those guys who made it, right? So those guys who didn't make it it's actually quite a substantial numbers, right? An example that can quote you as well. Healthcare apps. We have these smartphone apps that can do, check your blood, sugar level, this and that. You guess how many apps are there available for download in Google Play Store and Apple iTunes and the Google Play Store? There are hundreds of thousands of them, right? Out from that, this is actually the statistics, 300 over 1,000. Out from that, everyone wants to create their own apps. But the thing is that, does it make, if your purpose is to make a difference to the patient's life, then your apps are different. So there's actually only 43 of them being downloaded 83% of the time. So those are the apps that makes a difference. Those has value propositions. The rest of them may not have. So when you don't have value proposition, you are automatically being eliminated. The survival of the fittest comes in.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Thank you very much for that thought. Value proposition, what differentiates you in the market? What differentiates you? What brings a different value, a better value than what the rest are offering? Isaiah, you have a thought on that before I move to the next question?
I'll just add, because I think Dr. Khoh has unpacked it so well. I'll just say the following, that quite often when it comes to innovation, people only think of the creativity and the inventive side, which is quite often the fun side. But I believe innovation has a serious side to it, where they talk about, I say 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration. There's hard work, there's a serious side to actually implement innovation, to turn that idea into value. Just a last thought, that as companies innovate in Horizon 1, the business of today, quite often they don't innovate simultaneously in the business of tomorrow and the business of the future. So that one innovation will fail, like the example of Uber that Dr. Khoh alluded to. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for that. So I take the next question from Ify. The question says, is there any platform from you where we can be trained to acquire this innovation skill? Yes, that will be communicated. We have a platform, and the members of the faculty, Dr. Khoh and Dr. Isaiah, they are also on ground with us to actually help. We also belong to a platform, a bigger platform, global platform that does that. We can mentor you in this area to kind of grow the skill of innovation. We are innovation community. So we take this discussion further after this session. So we'll get back to you and reach out to you on how to grow your skill. What are the programs we have in place? Thank you, Ify. Another question, the inability to have sufficient ideas remain African problem, much as it is misunderstood. It's maintained the position of being the most powerful tool to sustainable development, especially in African countries. That's a thought from Michael Shodunkel, that we have sufficient idea to solve Africa problem. There's a word I really like here. The crisis we're having today is more of creativity crisis and how to implement to execution. There are millions of ideas out there that we don't really have the capability that we can translate them to value, something that can be of commercial value or even humanitarian value. So we believe that with community like this, sharing information, training, capacity development in the area of innovation, we believe we will translate more, we increase the success rate in innovation in Africa to really transform the community. That's a thought from here. I don't know if any members of the panel has a thought around solving problem using idea in Africa. Another thought here is today's scholars and motivational speaker will talk so much innovation, but still leave their audience in mental chaos. Yes, in the interest of time, I believe we'll have a separate session. And that is the reason why the three of us, as you can see on this screen, we are here today. We belong to that body that have looked beyond just talking innovation. We walk innovation. We've been able to define metrics of measuring innovation capability. A mentor said a while ago that what you cannot measure, you cannot transform. It starts from measurement. When you set KPI for what you're doing, then you can improve on it. And what has been done on our platform is the ability to have been able to come up with metrics to measure where you are, set up key performance indicator of how you're performing in relation to innovation, project management, operational excellence, and the rest of them. So we don't just talk of innovation, we work innovation with the framework that we have developed, that we have kind of using currently, and it's being used across the world to assess businesses and position businesses to not only stay relevant for today, but also in the future. So we will welcome you to the platform. I believe a new session will come up to actually intimate the participants on this framework. It's a powerful framework that have looked at innovation holistically, the why of innovation, the who of innovation, how to innovate, where to innovate, when to innovate. So those questions have been answered. Dr. Khoh, just a thought from you here. You said failure can be due to many reasons. Still dwelling on the why does innovation fail? As innovation is highly complex endeavor, among the top reasons are lack of value proposition, which you have rightly explained. Thank you. Keep bringing in the question. A thought here around blue ocean, very key in terms of creating value, not only in the existing market that you are in, you can also create new market. From Ugo Obi, can you recommend very great business opportunities one can leverage in these COVID-19 times and beyond? Now, I will just maybe gloss over that, then I will throw it to the members of the panel. What I will say here, I will just kind of try and localize my thoughts around this. Regardless of what you are doing or where you are currently, I believe there are a whole lot of value that you can create, new values that you can create. Innovation is not only based on advanced technology, it's also based on how you do what you do. What you're currently doing, can you do it cheaper? Cheaper than what is available around you. That is innovation. What you're currently doing, can you deliver it faster? Can it work faster? That is one value that you can bring to the table, even without doing new thing. The current thing you're doing, can you do it cheaper? Can you make it faster? Can you deliver it faster? Then can you make it of better quality? By doing this, you may not spend extra money or kind of train yourself in an advanced way. These are basic skill that you can apply to what you're currently doing. Then finally, what you're currently doing, can you offer a better customer experience? Example is Zoom. We are all using Zoom today. But Zoom wasn't the first collaborative platform in the world. Now, the capitalization of Zoom can buy 6 airline organization in US. Zoom has less than 1,000 employees, but you can imagine an industry, the aviation industry, having more than 100,000 people. And yet a company worth more than 6 of those corporations. So what has Zoom done recently or differently? They've been able to make the work cheaper, faster, better, and a better customer experience. There are many other things that are put in place. They didn't really reinvent the wheel. So Microsoft is currently doing a kind of cash up with Zoom. Microsoft has been there for years. Apple has been there for years. So what we're saying here is most of the time you may not really have to really go out of your way to innovate. It's just improving what you're currently doing in a cheaper way, faster way, better quality, providing better customer experience. With that, I roll over to the members of the panel for their thoughts on this before I move to the next question. Doctor?
Okay. I think I can add on to what you just mentioned, using your same example of Zoom, right? So the value proposition of Zoom, in addition to Femi has alluded to earlier, Zoom also technically, has advantages, or shall I say shortcomings as well, right? So Zoom is one of the solutions that requires less bandwidth to run a video conferencing. That's the reason why people favor them, because it uses, your broadband is slower, doesn't matter. And we also know why, because at the expense of some security protocols that has been eliminated. Because by doing that, you don't have to have a very high-speed broadband. You're still able to do that. Architecturally, that works. It's a value proposition, which means that customer who have a slower broadband can still able to use a video call as opposed to the rivals, right? So those are the architectural value proposition. Another one is actually, Zoom also in a sense that it knows where the behaviors of users are. They give you free access, right? 45 minutes. Still remember that? They always give you 45 minutes free access. That creates a lot of people to jump on this bandwagon, right? So this is right where it's all about value proposition. So the thing is like, once you do that, you see that WebEx start to do that as well, following the footstep of Zoom, giving you free access. So that is where, when it comes to innovation, it's not stationary, because the moment you demonstrated something, then competitors can look into that benchmarking and then continue to evolve from there. That's the reason why, a lot of times we say that the best investment for an organization is to invest on the culture of innovation, because it's the most difficult to copy. If you have a product, the moment you release out into the market, someone can buy one of your product, reverse engineer it, learn everything inside out, and then do it the same thing, right? So those are the things, because we're talking about innovation, because if you really work on innovation, you actually keep your mouth shut, and then you work under the radar without anyone noticing it until you launch your product. That is how critical it is. I know that sometimes you hear, read in newspaper or news that, some engineers from a company commit suicide because they lost a prototype of the product, right? So those are how serious it is, right? So I think alluded to this particular example, right? I think this is where it's very critical to know what is the value proposition you're providing. And value proposition, even convenience is there. So in the case of COVID-19, we know that it's convenience. We know that it's low touch economy is going to be there. Low touch, zero touch, and that kind of things. And those are value proposition that you're going to provide to your customers, whoever is paying for it, right? Yeah. So if you have that in mind, I think even real estate, even food delivery and all those, they have elements of that. Because of COVID-19, it's going to be a new normal. Zero touch or low touch economy is going to be there. And also the other thing that you can actually sometimes countries and countries compete with each other, because now that we are actually, we can work anywhere. If anyone, that's what I always tell my engineers previously, regardless of how skillful you are, there's always anyone in this world that provide the same value as you at a cheaper rate.
Cheaper rate.
Right? So that's how globalization works.
Yes.
Globalization cuts both ways. It's not that it's only one way. I think that's where I'm coming at, just to add on to what Femi has said.
Thank you. Yeah, Doctor, before you go into answering that, I want to add a thought to it from the question being asked from here, so that we can really manage the time. There's a question from Kunle Atilade here. Is into the property management industry or sector. Now the question is, what can it do differently to remain relevant in the field, bearing in mind that there are delays in some of the operational activity relating to that industry, like payment of rent, sales of property. People are not really buying. The market is not really performing very well. The question from him as a property manager is, what can he do to stay relevant and still thrive?
Okay. That question for me or for Isala?
Yeah. Isaiah, then
okay.
you have it. Yeah, please.
No, it's fine. Look, yeah, it would be awesome to spend time. What you said his name was, or the person's name was?
Kunle Atilade. Kunle. Kunle, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been nice to spend time with Khoh, because specifically there was a specific offering that he had and still have, but the market have changed. It's been disrupted. So what is to be reconstructed to see what customers want? Perhaps I can share the following business idea with him, which is indirectly related, and also dealing with the previous question. In us now currently in the low or no touch economy, one thing that I've noticed that becomes very important is virtual reality as well as augmented reality. Now, there's various applications in terms of education and training, but perhaps let me use an example that's closer to the question asked by Khoh. We actually have a studio in the city And quite interesting, through that augmented and virtual reality, you can actually have now people walk into the building without being there physically, look at the rooms, look at what it is, and have show
Wow.
out virtual reality. And I think
Wow.
it's technologies like those, Kule, in this current low-touch economy will actually grow exponentially because not many people want to go out and touch things. I think with that
Yeah.
said, also to the previous question would be the 3D printing industry. We know now we can already print food, clothes are there, everything is there. And I think more and more people will switch to that kind of technologies.
Thank you very much for that. In the interest of time, I think I will take the next question from Ifeyiwa. This question is for the host. Is there a platform where you can be trained to acquire this? There is platform. We'll reach out to you on this subject. Then the next question, this is anonymous. How can one innovate on low budget? Doctor, that seems you're a portfolio manager. So how can one innovate on low budget?
To be honest with you, right? Any innovation, right? If you really talk about value proposition, yeah, if you have low budget, if you look at this word, India has this frugal innovation, right? Or they call it Jugat, right? Jugat. So when you are actually hard pressed with limited resources, your brain and your mind works better, to be honest with you, right? So on the contrary, a lot of big bang type innovation actually fall flat, right? Because money is too easy to spend, and that's one of the reasons why you notice that a lot of VC venture capitalists back innovation. I think in the past decade, they actually don't really produce the results that is what they desired for, because essentially you lose focus. Because the thing is, like, if you are actually passionate, just like sometimes when I talk to those researchers, I cannot share idea with you. No, you can steal my idea. But the thing is like this: even someone stole your idea, it will not be as good as genuine.
Yours. Yeah.
Because when you have that idea, the baby is yours. You will carry all the way through, regardless of how difficult it is. But you must have a purpose. If your purpose and your will is not strong, and that's why innovators has these technopreneurial traits, right? Because it's like never say no and never die and that kind of things, right? So to me, that is actually, in a way, it gives you a better perspective. You strip away all the bells and whistles, because a lot of times we know that people try to distract you with bells and whistles. But for those people who can see beyond the bells and whistles, you look at what is the meat, what is the value proposition. And from that point onwards, you attract a different kind of behavior, different kind of investors to your projects.
Wow, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Now we're talking about the minimum viable product. You can start from prototyping so that you don't put too much of money into the release. You can start with the minimum viable features that you can release. That is why you have release 1, release 2, release 3, so that you can at least manage your resources. Thank you, sir, for that thought. Isaiah, you have something to say on that?
Perhaps let me just give, perhaps I can give an organizational context.
Okay.
Innovating with low budget, I guess, story of my life. Generally in organizations, I mean, leadership at first. And there was also a question to Femi around how do you get buy-in for innovation in organizations? So I'll deal with it in the same response.
Good.
To say, yes, budgets generally are low because leadership at first, everyone is excited about innovation, but they cannot see the value. So what I often encourage leaders to do is to use the budget that you have and find one thing, a few things, low-hanging fruit that will be inexpensive to show value, whilst in parallel, the bigger innovations you brew and stew on the side, and you can actually fund some of them through partnerships. In doing that, what I often had to do with low budget was to formulate what I often call a value language. So as we implement, I calculate a projected ROI as well as the actual ROI. So if your actual ROI is maybe $1 million, and it's tough to calculate, but your projected ROI is 50 million or 1 billion, leadership tends to get your attention. I learned this trick in one of the organizations where I was head of innovation, where there was a very exciting technical project in the electrical engineering space. Long story short, we tried to sell the idea and couldn't sell it better until we formed the value language. But we realized that project in South African Rand stand to make the company R1 million per hour if implemented. And it only required 15 million Rand. When we said that to leadership, immediately the question was, where's the budget? Where's the check? Let's sign the check. You have to find ways of communicating future value so that you can actually buy in for that. Just quickly on the question of how do you get buy-in from leadership, it's very tough, but it's along the same lines of what I explained now. Don't be too, the word innovation, don't use that too much. Find a value language and communicate that to the organization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I like another thought there. You can also partner if you don't have budget that can deliver an innovation project. You can find partner to kind of sponsor the same, but the value communication is key so that you can get leadership buy-in and even sponsors to actually invest in the project. Great thought, sir. Great thought, sir. One from Mr. Fala here. That question is around innovation looks like a lean technique. It's both art and science. We have technology, you have methodology to it. We can take you on that, is what we do. The next question from him is, how can I master innovative spirit? I don't just want idea flash. Yes, in order to prevent a situation whereby it comes in a reactive way, there is a framework in place that you can use to manage your idea from ideation to commercialization, and how to manage innovation on a personal level and organizational level. There are frameworks in place. I believe very soon the community will kind of help individuals and corporations that are willing to learn more of these methodologies and framework. I believe that answers that question. I'm just trying to rush because of time. Yeah. Yes. Question from Mr. Michael here is, what are the emergency procedures now in this recovery stage of COVID-19, and how can one become agile to stay relevant? This is around the same discussion we'll be having, and I love the thought around seeing yourself as a creator. You should try and unleash that creativity skill in you. When God created heaven and earth, he left a lot of things unfinished. What that means is he believes in you that you can make it better. So you learn to look for a way to make things better, cheaper, faster, providing better customer experience. Then Dr. talked about the value proposition. And Isaiah mentioned also that make yourself more valuable. Make what you produce more valuable. Let people see the value in it that is more than what is actually available around you. The one way to help you to be creative is you have to unleash that sense of curiosity in you, and you must be ready to take risk. You just have to increase your risk appetite. You have to. Then you look for a way to reinvent yourself, renew yourself by being in the community of people thinking the same way that you want to think. And that is why the Convergence 360 is a community that will kind of foster the culture of innovation and also help you to develop your innovation capability. So because of time, I would like to take the final thought from our esteemed members of the panel. They've done a great job today. We really appreciate what you've done. I believe this is just the beginning of the journey. So let me take Doctor, your final thoughts.
Well, I think, right. Okay. So I think thank you so much for your kind attention. Essentially, what we need to do is actually, use the COVID-19 as a big reset, use it as an opportunity, and then get yourself inspired, get some kind of like high level purpose that you are living, feeling very, very passionate about, and march towards that direction. And more importantly, take action, because whatever that we have just shared to you, it will just remain as an idea and all this, right? But you need to translate into execution, because that is where the key action will be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Doctor.
Thank you, Femi. Yeah, final parting thought. Really just, it's very important. There was a question, how do I get this innovation spirit? Quite often, one of the misconceptions is that innovation ends with the idea. The ideator is the innovator. What's very important to our audience here is to understand there are various roles in innovation. There's the person that come up with the idea, the person that comments, develops, implement, and all of those things. Even the leader that opened the door for someone to test that innovation is part of that ecosystem. So when you engage in this innovation ecosystem, it's very important that you clarify for yourself which of those roles, and it can be more than one, do you actively play. In the case of the city of Tshwane, for instance, we don't have money to fund projects, but we open our doors to entrepreneurs. If you want to test your solution on 1,000 households, I can give you access, or 1,000 buses, or whatever it may be. But when I open our doors, people then come with funding and support then the project. So very important, understand your role that you can play into this ecosystem. And I think that's how we'll innovate faster. Final parting thought, Femi, there was a question around, I think it said insufficient ideas in Africa.
Okay.
It's something I feel very strong about. I think we have a wealth of knowledge and ideas in Africa, on this continent of Africa. I think what we often try to do is to westernize some of our solutions, and therefore we battle to compete. I even at some point thought that perhaps we need a new name for innovation, because there's innovation happening around us everywhere on a daily basis, but people don't even know that they're practicing or implementing innovation. Some don't even know that they can be leaders because it's not documented. So some of these things we need to rethink as a continent, to say, how do we plug into the rest of the world and communicate some of these beautiful things that we see around us? Because often, there was another thought on the platform saying that when we speak about innovation, we speak about it up there. And I agree. We need to break it down to a level where we can engage everyone around us on the street, on the continent, around African innovation. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, the members of the panel, who really appreciate this. I believe, like I said, it's just the beginning of a journey. I'm seeing a lot of yearnings here to learn more and to actually understand what innovation is all about, and also provide a kind of platform and community that will help them strengthen the fiber of innovation in them. I will round up with the last part of my presentation, just to kind of bring everything into a picture. Just allow me to share that. Just a minute. It's a summary of what we have discussed. Okay. I believe everybody can see my screen. Let me wait a bit. Where is loading for some? The parting thoughts for us here is around the 4 lenses of innovation, and that will answer the question, how do I innovate? So we just look at these 4 major ones. And like Mr. Isaiah said about innovation happening around you. Number one is begin to question the culture around you, how you do things. That's challenging the orthodoxy. And when you begin to question how you do things, why you do things, you end up creating better ways of doing them. You end up creating new value, coming out with new value. So the first thing is question, challenge the orthodoxies, how you do things. You can also question your mindset about things around you. Number two is harnessing trend. Where are things going? And you begin to position yourself, add more knowledge, skill, join communities that are going that direction. So try and understand trend. Then number three is leveraging resources. Now I will tie this to the question of limited budget. There are ways that you can reinvent what you have to produce new things and even achieve more. Doctor mentioned the aspect that if you have limited resource, your creativity skill kind of increases. You will just find the way. So most of the time, you may not need new input to what you're doing. Is just find a way to rearrange, reorganize, reskill what you currently have. Finally, understanding needs. This comes from studying. Study your customer. Either if you are a career person, you need to study your industry, study your organization to understand needs and come up with ways that you can manage them and even improve on them. So these are just four of the major ways that you can create value and stay relevant. One, challenge existing mindset and thinking. Two, watch out for the trends, where things are going. Three, maximize the resource that you have. By just reusing them in a different way, you can achieve great results. Finally, be an anthropologist. We call them anthropologists. You study events around you, you study the needs of your customers so that you can better serve them. With that, we have come to the end of this conference. We really appreciate you taking your time out to join us. This is a monthly series, and we believe that between now and next month, we will have reached out to you to answer some of the questions that you have raised or see how we can better serve you on the same platform. Once again, thank you for joining us. And I will also appreciate Dr. Khoh for taking time. And now I know this time in Malaysia, it will be around 9 to 10 p.m. already. Thank you, sir, for joining us. My colleague in SA, Tuale, sir, Dr. Isaiah, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And to the members of the audience, participants, I won't go without appreciating my team here working the back end there. Thank you, Femi-Stevens. We really appreciate you and many other guys. Mr. Jerry Chira, thank you for joining us. We appreciate the effort. And to everyone else, we really appreciate you. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Khoh, I was just sending you on the chat. I'll engage with Femi just to connect us going forward.
No issue. I think well, this innovation topic has always been, you know,
Yes.
to me. Yeah. In fact, you know, when I first started with innovation, we don't even use the word innovation. Innovation is the word that the media and the press are using, right? So internally, we are just do whatever that we are doing, right? Technically, and those are things that I do because I actually, you know, been through many journey, and in fact, some of those things that, you know, we work on the innovation world, there's so many different elements of it that you can play, right? Some are actually playing on intellectual property, where the game is actually on patent filing and, you know, patent litigation. That's one way of earning money, because if you were to go for that particular approach, then you always file the mother of all patents in things. Then you wait for anyone to infringe your patent, and then you take action. That's how you make your money, right? So the value proposition comes from there.
No. So true. Yeah, this was very insightful, and I think having been across so many domains and spheres and things, it's good to engage. And Femi, I was just thanking Dr. Khoh as well for his insights, and
Yeah.
that perhaps you will connect us going forward.
Yes, I think I'm bringing him to Africa. He's becoming Africanized now.
Okay, cool.
We still have 10 participants online.
Okay.
But drop and then we can continue dive back in again. Yeah.
No. Let's do that. I will share with you. There's the annual South African Innovation Summit. I don't know whether you know about it, Femi. And it's taking place at the end of September. This year is the first year that it goes virtual, but it's quite a big event. And I'm affiliated and linked to the organizers, but it's too late for this year. But I think that's one of those events that going forward, let's see what we can do together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Even as the city, we're planning what we call an African Cities Innovation Summit. It was meant to be March next year, but we postponed it to the end of next year. So it's going to be a sizable event. And I mean, let's keep in touch in some of these things and then see how can we actually do more of this and share value.
Yes. You see, the feedback we got today, I think the hunger is there, and we can't but kind of sustain the momentum and keep the community.
Yes.
We just have to keep the community, and the thinking now is how do we kind of keep the flow, because the three of us have started something. How do we build on that and still keep the flow? So we will get back to you on how we want to really keep the flow of thought and what has been built today, and kind of maximize the result. The turnout is encouraging. The questions really kind of show us the thoughts out there, and we can't but kind of take advantage of that in reaching out and helping the society.
Right.
Absolutely. No. Thank you.
It's as if everybody don't want to go again. So don't worry, guys. October is coming. We'll find something. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Take care. Regards to your wife.
Bye.
Dr. Bye. Yeah.